Hello, and thanks for being with us on the New Leaf Show with Dr. Michael Leitman. Hello, Dr. Leitman. Hello, everyone. And today we'd like to talk about contagion. We're living in the coronavirus era, and the concept of infecting and so on, it became routine. Previously, we were also infected by different viruses, but it wasn't that important. But suddenly, contagion became a central element shaping our life from one end to the other. And this raises many thoughts and questions, and this is what we'd like to talk about today, contagion. And the first subject that I'd like for us to talk about is the reason for contagion. There are things that spread very quickly between people. Why? We live in an integral global world that is entirely closed inside, like, let's call it a sphere. And we're all in it. You can measure distances between stars and between galaxies and whatnot. But it doesn't matter. Still, we're all interconnected. And the field that ties us together is a field that, at an infinite speed, passes information from place to place, from state to state. And therefore, we have to take into account that we're all interconnected. Still, vegetative, animate, speaking, all around the universe, we're all interconnected. It's all one system. And on Earth, even more, that we're interdependent and we're interconnected. And therefore, what does it mean that people live on some island in the Pacific Ocean and suddenly the virus reaches them without there coming any ship or airplane or anything to their island? It just comes and that's it. And people get ill, become infected with the coronavirus. And from country to country, even without there being any kind of connection through tourism or things like that. Meaning we have to understand that all of us are in a single connection. And it's not that we can determine the kind of connection, but this connection exists. And therefore, it's not a problem to pass these different kinds of influences between us, positive or negative, and this is what we see with the coronavirus, how it simply, at what speed it suddenly covers entire countries, millions of people, from rural places that are very far from each other, or some city someplace, or some country, everyone. It's as if there's this wind traveling around the world and everyone becomes infected. Why is there such a phenomenon like contagion in nature? Because we're all interdependent. We're all interconnected. We all live in one world under the one force of nature. But not everyone has everything that everyone else has. Well, we are different. Of course we're different, but still, depending on, in relation to what virus or phenomenon or what, there are those that are more sensitive, less sensitive, not sensitive at all. There are these and there are those. But the fact that we are in one system under one umbrella, that's clear. Is there some kind of an organized mechanism that passes contagion Is there some mechanism? Of course. It's a single field that we all exist in which we're all interconnected and interdependent. It's like that under the ground, there is such connection between the plants that they're all interconnected. It's a well-known phenomenon. But you have the same also in the still, not only in the vegetative, also in the animate, speaking on all levels. Previously, you said that it happens very quickly. Contagion. How fast does it happen? Not that fast, but it happens. If it appears in one place, at the same time, it can practically appear in all other places. How does that work? Under the ground, like I said. I'm telling you, there are countries that are barely connected to other countries, but you can't say that they'll have no virus there. How will it get there? Under the ground. What do you mean when you say under the ground? What do you mean? Under the ground, you build a shelter. But what is underground? That whether we want it or not, we're interconnected and interdependent. So much so that you can't hide from this connection. Underground, when you say that, what do you mean? I can't explain it because we don't feel all the networks that we're interconnected in. What networks are we interconnected in? We're connected in the air through radio waves and thousands of other kinds of waves. We're connected. Yes. So, I don't know how this virus comes. It comes through a certain wave. We live in a system of waves, so on different frequencies. So comes a certain frequency and clothes on our new general frequency or even our old frequency, and this is how we get this new shockwave. When you were talking, I imagined radio waves, 95.5, you hear my favorite station, and so on. There are many frequencies that transmit in the air. If we look at the coronavirus, how does it pass from place to place? We know, up until now, we knew that it goes, my family doctor said that the virus goes through direct physical connection, meaning that someone emits something from their mouth, from their nose, breathing, doesn't matter. In that, there are drops, tiny droplets. If it touches you, then you might get infected. If you don't come in contact with it, then you can calm down. Now you're increasing my anxiety. You're saying, no, it's not through droplets, it's in the air, it's through waves. How does it work? No one knows. But certainly, and of course the family doctor, he's right, and I can't say anything against him. But this is a very practical way that it passes through. Drops or sweat or saliva or that we sneeze. So this is how it passes from one to the other. But more correctly, it passes through foreign thoughts that we project to each other. The viruses, they pass to each other in this way, because if we think about each other, for better or worse, there is a difference, but eventually we're interconnected. We're interconnected in a field of thoughts, and there we actually project to each other these viruses. How does it work? This broadcasting mechanism of viruses and of thought, how does it work? You don't understand how a radio or your television set works with transmitting system. I remember from school there is a radio that broadcasts on a certain frequency. In order to perceive that frequency, you have to have a receiver, and if you tune it in to the same frequency, you perceive the information that's passed on that wave. How does it work in thoughts? Say something similar to that. That if we, between us, are connected through bad egoistic relations, then we're already connected in that, and then we pass to each other bad measures, ill measures, viruses. Previously, you said that there is a field of thought in which this information passes through, and also the viruses, and you mentioned foreign thoughts. What do you mean by foreign thoughts? They carry these viruses in this field of information? Yeah. How do you define foreign thoughts? Foreign meaning bad. Bad thoughts. That I project something bad to another person. I think bad things about him. I don't want to get closer to him. I don't want to bring him closer to myself. About someone in specific, about humanity in general, and about someone in specific too. And then what happens? This is how the broadcasting process begins. Yeah. So I broadcast what? A rejecting approach? True. Rejecting approach. What's so bad about it? By this, I generate bad viruses. How? Because I simply reject everyone. I don't want to be connected to everyone in one mutual system. That where we're all interdependent by a force of good. But by that, I build such a system that rejects and doesn't want to connect to others and is only looking for ways of how to be better off at the expense of others. Meaning that if my attitude is at the expense of others to my own benefit, then by that I as if isolate myself from the general field that ties all of us. This is what you talked about in the beginning of the show. Okay, so let's talk about the next stage. This attitude of mine, which is actually an that's against the system, so to speak. I have this kind of attitude toward the rest of the parts of the system. How? From here comes a virus that infects someone else. By not treating others favorably, you introduce into the general system, into this field that interconnects us all, you introduce a negative rejecting force that's anti-connection, that's anti-mutual responsibility, that's against all the social phenomenon, and by that you really weaken the system. Why? Because it acts like any other system, that the more similar forces you have that join in there, the stronger it is. Where does the process of contagion begin? In that you perceive negative instead of positive forces. Up until now you said that I transmit negative things and also perceive. To the measure to which you project negative forces, you also perceive them. Where do they come from? From others, from other people, from the outside, that also transmit these kinds of things. Yeah, it's well known to psychologists, to everyone. Bad thoughts, good thoughts, blessings, well-wishing, or ill-wishing. It's known to humanity that that's how it works. So how would you define the mechanism of contagion? Very simple. Good things adhere to good things, and bad things adhere to bad things. Going back to the coronavirus, how does it spread in this network? To the measure to which we have crossed a certain level, a certain height of negative thoughts, a certain measure of negative thoughts, breaks out a virus like the corona. Why? Because we passed a certain level, measure of bad thoughts about each other, and so the virus breaks out. Why? Because we surpassed a certain degree of bad thoughts about each other. And what does it have to do with the biological virus? It's just an expression. An expression of what? An expression of how we relate to each other spiritually, willingly. What does it express? It expresses how much we hate each other, how much we reject each other. We don't want to be connected. So just to see if I understand, after we have crossed a certain level of bad relations between people, not someone in specific, but in general inside the framework, as a result, in the network, a biological virus breaks out. True. Now, once it broke out, how did it suddenly start infecting the entire world? Because all of us, we have built this negative network in our connection, and therefore in that network, the virus is now breaking out. And how does the contagion happen? From one to the other, to the measure to which everyone has a virus. Has it how? By projecting these negative forces onto others. So it's beyond the level of getting infected through droplets, or what level is this on? On the level of desires and thoughts. Okay, you gave me an example. Maybe a person lives on some island that no one visits him there. He gets nothing through the mail, and suddenly you have the coronavirus appearing there too. Can this happen? But we saw that this happened. How did the virus get there? Through the air. It's not through the air. Then through what? Through identifying in thoughts and desires, identifying who with the identification between the bad thoughts of a certain person on that island and someone else on another island who also has bad thoughts. What is a bad thought? No, it's simply that a person thinks about other people negatively, poorly, how to benefit, gain off them, push them out. An ordinary person, don't call him bad. So the virus passed from people in one country to people in another country, not necessarily through visitors that visited one country or another, but through that field of thoughts. Yeah? If I look at nature as a system, previously I gave you an example that all plants are interconnected under the ground. I like that expression. What is the purpose of this beneath the surface, let's say, beneath the surface process? Why do viruses outbreak suddenly? Because they're independent of matter. They don't have to go through these droplets, like you said. They don't have to pass through droplets from one to the other, but they pass like through waves, like you have brain waves, desire waves. Now suppose at the other end of the world, someone's thinking about how to write some article in a newspaper. This is a very well-known phenomenon. Suddenly, another person on the other side of the world gets the same idea. How? How? That's the question, but it passes. Once we had these two big newspapers in Israel, Yediot and Ma'ariv. They were on the same street, one opposite the other, on both sides of the street. So people that used to work there, they told me that what the one newspaper writes, for some reason the other newspaper starts feeling it too. These are companies with thousands of people and no one talks to the other for sure. But this is how it is. Suddenly the next day comes out a newspaper with the same title, Coronavirus Heading Our Way, and the other one with the same title. You know how embarrassing that is in journalism, but that's how it is. And when they're asked, they say, yeah, true. It's the nature of things that what we think here, they think there. So thoughts are contagious. Yeah. And biological viruses, are they contagious too through field of thoughts? Biological viruses, no, it's not simple. So if you can explain, please. It passes through the field of thoughts and later is materialized in a biological form. Can you explain this? No, I can't. How does it happen? Out of thin air, from spirituality that has no corporeal image. How does it affect? How does it influence? I don't know. Please explain to me, how do the thoughts from one newspaper pass on to the other, or the other way around? How? So much so that the headline in the newspaper, that this their face. That's how it is. Let's flip the coin. So there are things that are hard to explain here, I understand. Okay, but they work. The virus, it spreads, covering the world. If I want to develop an antivirus, some kind of mechanism that will stop the contagion, what is this mechanism supposed to be? Connection and love. As simple as that. One opposite the other. The virus is a negative thought, a negative desire. Antivirus is a positive thought, a positive desire. A positive thought, a positive desire. What does it mean in practice? That I want the benefit of others. And here too, it's like you previously said, that it could be someone or it could be someone else, one way or another, in general or in particular. Here too, will the mechanism of contagion work too? There is such phenomenon too. What? Who will infect whom with what? If all of us will think positive thoughts, then it will affect everyone, and everyone will think more and more. Audiences will have better and better, more positive thoughts. Suppose you're a person who has very positive thoughts, and I live someplace in the United States. You want to tell me that your positive thoughts will spread and will infect me in the United States? Well, it's hard to believe, but yeah, that's how it is. Oh, I'm not talking about to believe or not. Scientifically, I'm asking, does it happen? Mister, these are waves. So why don't your positive thoughts as a positive person, why do they not infect all people? Because they collide with other people's negative thoughts. Sorry for saying so, that I'm as if saying that I'm positive and everyone's negative. No, I'm not talking specifically about you, but no, we can talk about that, no problem. Suppose a positive person wants to send positive thoughts to everyone else. Why is that not contagious? Does it collide? Collide with what? There's like a mechanism that prevents contagion. What is that? It's the mechanism of equivalence. Identifying with, sympathizing with. Just like I think positively, there should also be someone else who thinks positively, and then we connect between us on the same wave. So similar infects similar. That's how it works. Yeah. So why do bad things spread quickly? Because there's a very big field which is entirely bad that humanity is generating. And it means that they won't be able to find a remedy for the corona? Let's hope so, that the coronas that will come time after time will force us to do something against them, to create some kind of antivirus. But the antivirus, if it too should be some kind of contagious phenomenon, no, it's not that contagious. Because negative thoughts, they spread without any effort. Why? Because man's inclination is evil from the start. And what does that mean? We, by nature, are built to think negatively about others. Why? Because it influences me. What does it say about contagion? About contagion, it says that to the measure to which there will be more positive thoughts in the world, we'll have a broader audience to work against the corona and all other negative things in the world. Do you believe that in this general framework that is full of negative charges, if people like you start broadcasting positive charges, could it infect others? Yeah? Of course. It all works according to equivalence of form. And if there's no equivalence of form, how is there that there's no equivalence if you have billions of people that think negatively? Okay, this I understand. I'm only trying to invert it into how do you make it positive? Through education. What kind of education? Explaining. Through explaining that if we continue having bad thoughts about each other, it's to our detriment. Unfortunately, our time's up. How do you see the usage of this mechanism of the infecting mechanism in order to help us? We have to find easier and simpler explanations, and it will happen, and we'll use positive viruses in order to overcome the negative ones. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us. Till next time, all the best.